We share. Oh, take a ride with me.
Many people feel growing up is something that is easy. You know, they look at young people and feel that they should behave in certain kind of ways, and because they themselves are adults, so everybody should just behave like adults. But I know for sure that growing up is one of the most challenging things that any man, any woman, can sit back and imagine. I have had quite some time growing up, and that is why the ministry that I run today is a very special kind of ministry. I look out for those that have been rejected by society, that have been, looked down, maybe because of who they are, what their choices have been. God took me through a series of experiences that shaped the person that I am today. And having received such great grace, it is my responsibility to share also this grace and find someone who can be helped. There are people down the downturn of life, but I know that my story can go a long way, calling someone back and putting them on perspective. I grew up in the streets, from a religious home, a Christian home. That kind of Christian home where you only remember to go to church on Sunday, and thereafter, your life is just running on the wild. So somehow my desire for understanding my need to realize the person that I am, made me look out for religions that will make me the person that I desire to be. The Christian religion for me was a scam. You go to church and you see people behave, and they behave some kind of way, and also expect you to behave in another kind of way, that is fashioned after their likeness. And things don't usually go that way. As a young person, you have to discover who you are and discover the purpose of your being. And that can drive us into a whole lot of things. I was interested in experiencing power, having a feel with power. So I dabbled into the occult and did some practices that I will not blow out, on full range. But the fact of the matter is, this is part of the growing up young man. And I had a lot to do with the religion of the East, and I read so much from the likes of Lobsang Rampa, and then I was also interested in these American D. Lawrence, and all of those things that a young man will feel will come to him with power. At some point you would experience things. I remember a particular book I ordered from India, and that book came in delivered on my bed without a mailman. Now, I'm just trying to share with you the extent, the depth of sorcery that was involved in the things I enjoyed, until it was time to go to school. That was quite early. Secondary school, we were exploring those things. I still remember I was in JSS 2 when I had my first meditation an attempt to do an abstract travel and all of that. There are experiences you have, discussions that you have with yourself, and some beings, some spirits that you can feel physically. There are instances where, you set up, well, I wouldn't love to go into those details because I am still thinking that some young men and women will be listening to me today and would want to experiment it. Some of those things I did were out of experimenting. You see something, you perceive something, you heard something, and you want to put it to work. So it was like that. And then the secondary school era passed. My admission to the College of Education, exposed me to another kind of world. You make friends, and then one evening, I had actually, before coming to school, understood that there are vices, and then when you get to school, you make friends, and some friends would want you to be some kind of friend. So one evening, I remember going to the cafeteria to eat, and I had two young men who came just for me. One fair in complexion, the other guy looking dark. And then the fair guy was quite polite, but the other one was mean and was just out for something. So the fair guy told me they came to see me and they will need to talk with me outside. I had no choice but to follow them. When we got out there, the dark complexion guy put his hands under his shirt and pulled a weapon out. And in the cover of the dark, with moonlight, you could see part of that weapon glittering. It was frightening. And then all of a sudden, the fair complexion guy gave him a sign, and then he held put. Wow, I knew I was done. Today, I'm a dead rat. So the fair guy now said, well, Charlie, we're going out with you tonight. You are our guest. I said, oh, I beg you in the name of God. I remember God then, I beg you in the name of God, I am not Charlie. My name is not Charlie. I told them my names, and then mentioned my ghost name also. Everything was laid open there. Now, while this encounter, was going on, while this experience was going on, some other guy came. Maybe they were delaying too much, and then he came to find out what was happening, behaved as if he was an ordinary passerby, and I was hoping for someone to just give me help at that point. Incidentally, the guy who came, the passerby, was someone I knew, so I called him by his name. So he stopped. Oh, when he turned, he knew me as well, so he responded by calling me by my name. And the name he called me was one of the names I had told these guys, And finally, they knew that was a mistaken identity. So at this point, I knew, okay, I was playing cool. Now I'm down for game. Went home and consulted with a few of other of my friends, and the next thing was lined me up, and I went to the bush with them. We had a bush party. That was an experience of my life, an experience that I would not wish, an enemy of mine, would have. Well, it was a long night of drilling, and my whole body was torn into shreds. At a point, I knew that I was the one who brought myself here, so even if I die, so be it. And you're lying right there naked. naked, completely naked, as naked as you just can be. So somehow my body became numb. So you hit me and I was not moving. Oh, they suspected that this guy must be dead. All right, they made some call. One other fellow came who I assumed was a doctor, in the bush with us. So he came in and did some quick, touch feel around my body, and he was like, okay, it's good. So I was commanded to stand up, and I stood up. That guy, one of those young men who was drilling us, looked at me and asked me what my problem was. And the guy just threw that stunt to make someone panic or something. I didn't say anything, so he raised his hand on me, slapped the daylight off my face. At this point, my mind already had zeroed me out for a dead man, so I was no longer afraid of dying. When he slapped me, I returned it with full gauge. I slapped him in a way that he fell flat on the ground. Oh, from that moment, there was some kind of, this must be, this one has liver, all those kind of things, So, my experience with school, came in that direction. But the funniest of all is that the moment you begin to enter into that route, everything about your life begins to run in some kind of speed that is just uncontrollable. Now, let me shut that part down. I work with young people who struggle with substance abuse and all of these things that go into our bodies. And for me, my take is not to just come shut them down. Oh, you're evil, you're destroying yourself. By the way, someone who is addicted is not afraid of dying. The least thing on his mind is dying. That's not what he's afraid of. What he is caring about, what he is concerned about, is the fact that, hey, do I have more of this in the near future? How long would I stay without this, or how long am I going to have this particular thing? So my take is not to just kill them all out or shut them down. No. If you are able to walk with them and they understand that you have been through that route, it is easier to save. I started smoking when I was 11 years old, and this is not something I'm proud of, but for over 15 years I was chained into tobacco. I was addicted to substance. I was addicted to crack cocaine. There is just nothing you can imagine that can make you high that I have not tried. And so, at the point, I felt, oh, this is it. Completely hooked. My story is one of grace. If you have never been addicted, you may not understand what I'm talking about. It is the most difficult chains to break from, because everything ties you down and your life does not move without those things that actually kill you. So you keep going for them, keep running after them. My days in school, I let me put it in a simple term. I sold cocaine while going through school. And so you have bias. And let me tell you, most politicians we talk about today were the good market. You understand? And you see, this is a struggle that you have to go through. But every passing moment, you know that something is not right with your life. But you just can't stay all by yourself. Because when you stay all by yourself, you begin to face the reality of the person that you are. And it is the scariest thing that will happen to you. So you always love to be in company of other people who are also in your kind of dilemma. So I used, I sold, and all the way through school until one day, I came back home when I saw a group of people, assembled somewhere in one open space like that, with a big tent that I have never seen. What is happening here? Some persons were like, wow, that's Noah's Ark. So I passed by, because each time you have a church come to run a program, we are always there, because all of those daughters, all of those children, young girls that have been, caged by parenting, will always have that opportunity, to go out, and you want to prey on them. So we attend crusades, evangelistic campaigns, and when we go there, we know what we go to look for. And then the next thing we want to do is to infiltrate you, and we come in through your music. You understand? So as you beat the drums, we have persons who are good at the drums. I used to do rap, so we can just come in, and before you know it, you're looking for people, and then we hijack the whole thing and turn it into some big party like that. It was working for us. I'm saying us because I had a group of a clique of friends, that aligned with your thinking, and it was fun to just go out and disrupt those things. So one of these outreaches came, a big tent. Some people called it the Ark of Noah, and some of those were like, wow, we've never seen anything like this before. So what is it up to? Well, that tent was pitched on a Friday. Now, the following morning, Saturday, I sat in a drinking parlor with my friends. We're just there drinking, smoking, and doing our thing. One young man walked into that place to distribute flyers. Everybody made a mockery of him, made jest of him and all of that. But something was just different for me, because this is a church person. What on earth gave him the balls to get into this place? Let me see what he's got. So I took that flyer from him, looking through. Wow, very fascinating title. One God, one Bible, many churches, different doctrines. Why? I was like, boom, that question has to be answered. Who's going to answer it? Okay, for that question, I'm going to attend that event and see how they're going to go through that question, and then you have other titles like okay, how to postpone your funeral. Wow, dying is a big issue. You understand? Dying is a big issue. Oh, if I don't have to die too quick, okay, how do I postpone it? Yeah, maybe I'll be interested in that. Things like that. World history in advance. These were titles that were catchy. So I attended the event. The first night, that night, I was so drunk. I was so high. But I managed to attend. Oh, for the first time, this religious gathering would give you a seat to sit down. That was strange. Usually you stand, and whatever happens, happens. So I sat there, my mind running over a lot of things. My mind was unstable. Of course, like I said, I was hell drunk. So one video that was played, I tried to make a sense of it, but I saw a video that started with one Mr. Joe, who took a stick of cigarette, and then just after lighting it up, the camera drove into his nostrils following that inhalation, and then what it goes to do down with his lungs and all of that. The whole thing, I was not able to put the pictures together, but the way I'm describing it is just what I was able to catch, the experience I was able to get from all that was running on my mind. And I told myself, no, I'll come back here tomorrow and I'm not going to drink anything. I'm not getting anything stand, between myself and my mind. So the following day, I came back, sat there. These guys were just making sense, because for me, that Bible was a history book of a peasant farmers somewhere in the Middle East. So why do you build religion out of it? All those crazy thinking. And by the way, before this time, the only use of the Bible to me was to yank Proverbs and Psalms out, cut them in some kind of way, use pieces of those cuts to wrap in their hair and smoke. We felt, I felt maybe that's how to smoke wisdom. And you glamour in the fact that, the only part of the Bible that is useful is the one that is that we call wisdom books. When you use it to smoke banner, you get wisdom. So at this point, I had no contact with the Bible as to think of anything good of it. But these guys started making sense. And then every night that passes, gets me up to many more questions. Many questions generate from every night that passes. And I sat with these people, engaged them. All my, confusion about religion was technically solved in 3 weeks. And I decided, okay, I'm going to give it a try. Let me register myself for baptism. When baptism as a subject was handled, I took that position. And the day I got back, more than 80% of my class, which was over 200 people, went to the river with me to get baptized. I was like, wow. I never knew that everyone seated there was just waiting for me to make a move. And when that move was made, wow, you wouldn't believe it. Okay, at this point, I knew that for the first time in my life, something was making an extra sense. I decided, whatever it is that has happened to me must happen to other young people. In fact, my thinking was that I was going to be the one to bring every young person, into this understanding. I packed up on every other career I had in mind to pursue. I was preparing to be a teacher. I did NCE, and then I finished that year expecting that I would be getting my employment confirmed. There was a green light, confirm my employment and just live my life a teacher. But the whole of that thing turned around. So news broke out to some of my friends and my group that, hey, this guy is in for church. So a couple of them came to me. I hope you know what you're doing. I'm like, sure, I know what I'm doing. And you know that if you're going to leave, you will go through the process that brought you in. Do you know that? And at that point, I didn't care much about nothing. Because if what it takes for me to get out of this fraternity is to go through the process of initiation, which is unthinkable, and they tell you then, that people who made such attempts do not come out alive, and then you are told directly that you will be going through a reverse of the process that brought you in order to go out. And I was okay with it. For me, that was just okay, because at that point, brother, if I had been killed that period, I would have died a peaceful, happy man, because the peace that I now experience from my encounter with these studies under that tent, I was ready to die, and not feel it. But while I was waiting for the plans, to invite me, I got an invitation once. And that invitation, no, I was not invited. I followed a particular meeting, of ours, one of those regular meetings. And some of the stuff that I had with me, I went to return. And it was looking as if there was no other person who was good enough to keep the stuff. So it must be me. I'm like, well, I'm leaving them here. I left them there. So I was surrounded that have broken rules, and the first thing to do is to hit the deck. And what does that mean? You just fall straight, like this, straight on the floor without any form of moving or shaking. Just go straight like a log of wood. And when you do that, somebody beats your back with machete, So I obeyed, and I did. So whooped my back, And right after that, you get up and do a chant. I refused to do it. And then some other person said, no, since I refuse to do it, I should hit again. I said, well, I'm not hitting. If you want to kill me, do it now. And they knew that, they saw that I meant what I was talking about this one. So they let me go, not because I just see God's grace anyway. When I left, I refused to talk about them. I refused to discuss them with nobody. I pushed that as a thing in my past. You understand? In my past. And here is a new life to live, followed my life. You know the interesting part? Many years later, some of those friends, I had lost contact with them. Sometime in 2003, I went into a shop somewhere in the city where I live, and I met some of them there. They were drinking, they were smoking, and do you know, one of those guys saw me and then took his cigarette and threw it away, and then was like, "Oh, Reverend, how wow, these are people that at one point in my life we sit down to do this stuff together, but today they are seeing me and they are keeping those things away. Wow, it must be grace." This was God in practical day walking, So those lessons, added to my conviction that, wow, truly God wants something out of my life, So I decided to take up the pioneering part of the work for church planting. Went somewhere in Northern Cross River. That's when I knew that if God says this is the way, there is absolutely nothing that can stop you or stop it. The event ended after 3 weeks. Everybody packed and left, but the new converts were like, "No, I should stay. So that was what kept me there. Stay and do what? To nurture them. So right there, one of those days I went to visit one of those members. I entered into a compound and I saw somebody. Wow. I turned like you did 360. I ran to go save my head. Went to my place, my house, packed up my things because I will not sleep in that community that night. So one other brother of ours who had lived in that community, in fact, we met him there. King, what happened? I told him, "Stay." "Oh, why can't you stay? What is? That his landlord, or the person I saw, is the son of his landlord. And that young man left school. He could not continue schooling because of me. How? Went out one evening and I went with my friend to see his girlfriend. And right there, this young man came in that same area, crossed over my leg and intentionally brushed off my shoe. And that was insulting for a young man. So I left the place and I went and laid ambush for him. And he came, took my machete, I was straight up for his neck. So I put my hand through in the bead to dodge. So the blade got him on the face by the eye. So, and then he struggled to run. He got a bad eye from that experience. In fact, I saw him and I saw that the whole of this place was healed, but the eye was gone. I knew I would not last in that community. In his hometown, I'm a dead rat. But do you know how God works? This brother of ours who asked me, and I was sharing the experience, said there is nothing God cannot do. And I said, no, God cannot do this one. How funny that was, you know. But do you know, somehow he persuaded me, and we had to meet with that young man. I was surprised when he opened his mouth. He said to me, I forgive you, I will know God. Yes. And that was the greatest sign of my being in this life. That sign sealed it for me. That sign nailed it. And since then, my commitment is with the young people, because I know what they are going through, what they are struggling with. Why? Because I have been through that path. It was never easy for me, but God just picked me out. I believe God did what He did with me because of the young people that will come